Welcome to today's video. Today's video, I'm going to be going back really to do an old video I did about electric car insurance, but I'm going to add some new details to this, and that is there is certain questions that you can answer differently, legally, as long as you're telling the truth, that will dramatically decrease the price of your car insurance. And depending on the insurer, there's some certain days you can apply for your car insurance quote, which will drastically affect the end price you pay on the quote. And in some respects, it can save you hundreds and hundreds of pounds by just getting your quote on a different selected day. Now, if you don't know who I am, I'm Nicolas Raimo. I make videos every single week about electric cars, transport, etc. Now, if you're interested in watching more videos about electric cars, learning more about EVs and other things regarding that kind of green technology era, please click down below the little subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up at the end if you're enjoying it. Now let's get straight into some of the things that you can do. Now, some of these things I mentioned, it's very important that I stress that you only do these things if they apply to you and it's legal. So don't try and change something that isn't true. But some of these things that you can answer on electric car insurance and general car insurance questions that will dramatically reduce the price you pay. So number one is if you're living with your partner, put it on the quote that you're living with a partner. Don't put single. If you're living with your partner, put that. If you're married, put that. If you have children, put that. Because having children, being married and living with a partner means that for some reason, under insurance purposes, you are less of a risk of having a crash. Therefore, it lowers your premium price. Now, there's some other things that you can do, which is slightly altering your job title around. So we're not saying tell me you do something else. We are just talking about changing the description of your job. So, for example, if you are, in my job, a car sales manager might be a cheaper alternative than saying car sales manager. So I'm still telling the truth, I am a sales manager, I'm just not putting the car sales manager at the start. And there is a website, Money Saving Expert, which will give you a list, there's a link down below, will give you a list of all the different job titles that you can use, which you put your job title in and it'll give you a list of 5 and you just pick the one that sounds the most applicable to you. Some of them may not apply to you, in which case do not use them. And it will tell you if that job description is a more expensive premium or a cheaper premium when you add it in, which is a great little tool. So that's the first one I advise to use. This next one is very important, that you don't lie and you tell the truth. And that is where you park your car. Now, the insurance question, when they ask you, is where do you usually park your car at night? Now, it's very important to note that if you park it on the road, that is the most expensive option. Reason is, if you park it on the road, you're more likely to have your car damaged by a driver, uninsured driver, who may not leave his details at night after he hits your car and writes off your brand new Renault Zoe or brand new Nissan Leaf. So don't park it on the road. Park it in your garage, you may say. That might be the safest option. It's hidden away, it's less likely to be stolen. Yes, that is cheaper than the road, but it's more expensive than parking in your drive, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, if your car got stolen while it's in the garage, you might not notice until a couple of days. If you're not using the car for a couple of days, the burglars could have stole your car at the garage, closed the garage back up, and you were none the wiser. You wouldn't be able to report that stolen car for a couple of days. Number two is you're more likely to hit your garage and damage it, and if you damage that garage, the insurance company have to pay for the car and the garage to be fixed, which is more expensive. Drive is the cheapest option, so if you can park on the drive for the majority of your driving between two cars, if you can mainly be on the drive the most, that is the cheapest option. Very quick side note, if you don't want to follow any of these tips and you just want a pretty decent, quick, cheap insurance, there is a company I mentioned at the end where none of these tips will apply to. They just give you the best quote, regardless of when you get the quote on how you do the quote. These two are odd ones that you wouldn't naturally think of. The other ones you could probably work out yourself, but these two are odd for insurance companies. They are the oddest, and number one is fully comp is cheaper than third party usually. And the reason for that is insurance companies think if you are willing to insure a car third party, then you're less responsible in your driving manner and you basically don't care about the car you're driving, therefore it hires the risk. So if you get a quote for fully comp, it will naturally be cheaper. The other one is some research conducted by, again, money saving expert, which looked at when people got the quote, 30 days up to the day before the insurance quote. And they found that they basically plotted it on a graph, which I'll display lovely on the side of the screen here. And they found that 21 days before your renewal quote was the cheapest date to get your insurance quote. It could differ by a huge amount according to the graph. So yes, if you're going to get an insurance quote, 21 days before the renewal is the cheapest point, which neatly brings me on to which company to use for your electric car insurance. Now, I have a Renault Zoe 22 kilowatt battery lease for the wife, and that is the car that I'm going to be using for this insurance quote. Now, it's very worth noting that I also have a BMW i3 120 amp hour, which I also ran the quote in exactly the same manner. For this video, I'm going to be using the Zoe battery lease because it adds a little bit of complexity, and all the other cars will be a lot simpler to do. The Zoe's the hardest to do, so therefore if you're watching with a Zoe, this video is simple. If you're watching with any other car, just do it as normal. So if you have a battery lease, it's very worth noting that most insurance companies will need to know the price of the car plus the battery lease. So if the car cost you £6,000, for example, and the battery lease contract says the battery's £6,000, you need to add 6 plus 6, 12 grand. Very simple, that's all you need to do. For every other car, you just state the total price of your car. If it's a non-battery lease, just state the total price of your car. Now, LV have come up with some electric car insurance, and they are the first to market. They're not, but we'll just play along with them, and that is that they offer you breakdown insurance as part of it if you run out of charge. If you have a battery lease Zoe, you don't need this element of battery recovery because it's included in your battery lease, but if you're non-battery lease, then it's useful, and for other people it is useful as well. So it is a nice little extra to have, but it's not a deal breaker. Most insurance companies don't charge much to add breakdown cover on anyway. Now, LV came up with a price after using all the tactics I know that make the quote a little bit more affordable, a little bit cheaper, and that is me as a second driver, because I do drive the wife's car, so I need to be insured on it. That decreases it. She parks it on the drive because she needs to charge it. We haven't got a charger in the garage, and she can't charge it on the road, so 52% of the time, 53% of the time, majority of the time, she's on the drive. So therefore, that was put into that equation. They came up with, I'll have to get my notes because I can't see my screenshot. They came up with £473, which is more than I paid last year with Plug Insure. So I was like, well, Plug Insure haven't sent me a renewal quote yet, and typically when you get a renewal quote back, it's usually more. So I thought, well, maybe insurance does technically go up as claims and people and crashes. So I was like, I might have to pay a bit more for the life's car insurance. Panic. Then I decided to use a general compare website. I think this one was Money Supermarket, and the cheapest came back was eSure. A little bit less shocking. They came in at $397.95, and that was including the total price of the car with the battery lease and the battery, which is still dearer than what I paid the year before. So I rang Plug Insure and I asked them where my renewal document was, and they said, oh, we just posted it out to you today. And I was like, great. And then it came in the post, and was it more? No, it was actually less than the year I paid before. I mean, not a lot less, £3 to be precise, £3 and a couple of pence less than I paid last year. But what a shock. First time I've ever had a renewal from the current insurance company I'm with that was less than I paid them in the previous year. So Plug Insure, if you don't know who they are, I did a video about them last year when I first discovered who they were. They are an electric car specialist for insurance. That's pretty much all they do. BMWs, Nissan Leafs, the new MG EZS they've been doing quotes on, which I've seen quite competitive quotes off them for. The only manufacturer they do not insure on is Tesla. They can't get anywhere close on price. So if you have a Tesla, it's not worth going to Plug Insure. If you have a Jaguar I-Pace, a BMW i3, any other electric car that is not a Tesla, plug-ins, full electrics, then go and use Plug Insure. They are super cheap, but cheap is probably a wrong word. They are more competitive than other insurers with a lot of benefits. They're a family-run company. They're based in Derbyshire. They've been really helpful with me with sort of giving me information on what I need to know about electric cars, insurance wise. They are also a supporter of Derbyshire EVs. They're a sponsor of Derbyshire EVs, so they pay for leaflets and some other Derbyshire EVs associated things. And they're a family business, local family business in Derbyshire, and seem to be coming up cheaper than all the compare websites. So thank you very much from me to Plug Insure. If you do use them, just let them know that I sent you. I'd like to let them know that for their support in other EV communities, that I'm telling you how good they are. They insured the BMW, for example, for I think it was £400 dead on, actually. I think it's £400 for the BMW dead on, which was, I think, the cheapest quote I had on a Money Supermarket website at the time was like 550 quid. So they're cheap. I'm not just telling you to go there because I use them. I'm telling you to go there because they are the cheapest. If there was a cheaper quote somewhere else, I'd be making a video saying how cheap the other companies were. I was hoping that LV were going to absolutely blow Plug Insure out of the water after I was speaking to them at fully charged, and they've not got anywhere close. So thanks very much for watching this week's video. Please check out my other videos, and don't forget to click the subscribe button and check out Patreon. Thanks very much, and I will see you again next week.